Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Novey Showvey. Listen, I'm not good at this part. I am terrible at this stuff. But on today's show, we have one of my best friends in comedy. He is so funny. He's been doing this for a long time. His name is Mike James. He lives right here in the Phoenix area. And I tell you what, though, he is so funny. And I'm so excited to have him as one of my first guests on this edition, season, generation, revelation of the Novey Showvey. He is so funny. We're going to talk about life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and all sorts of stuff, guys. So stick with it. And here we go. Happy New Year! No, I don't know. What's up, Mike? Well, welcome to the Novey Showvey again. This is how we do things. So there we go. We are.
Will we be having pie this time?
You know, this. I wish we could. That was my favorite thing to do, and it still is my favorite thing to do. But people don't really care for it, and I don't know why. They don't like watching.
I will say the one time you had me on your pie podcast, you didn't have pie.
That's true.
So I was disappointed, but whatever.
Yeah, one time I had somebody on. I don't remember who it was, but I found out when they got there that one, they don't eat sugar, and then I was like, well, why did you come on here?
Why are you my friend?
Yeah. We did one time. I think we might have eaten pizza pie, or that became up at some point. Anyways, but that's old news. But I am starting a new series. I don't know if it's going to be a new season or however it is. But I really want to talk to people that are in the Christian entertainment realm. And I want to talk about what we do and what you do and how you use their gifts for the kingdom. And I want us to have a lot of fun. And nothing is planned. Nothing's prepared. We're not Calvinists. So
perfect.
Nothing is predetermined here. So everyone that knows me knows who you are. But if they don't know, for some weird reason, can you let them all know?
Yeah,
who are you?
I am Josh's best friend, and no, I am a comedian. I am a performer and a comedian. Stand-up comedy is what I do, and I have a ministry called Cross-Eyed Comedies. We perform for churches and ministries and things like that, along with just doing other clubs and community events and so forth. Yeah.
That's super
what
cool.
I do. That's who I am. I'm married 38 years.
38 years. That's crazy.
3 kids, 7 grandkids. I'm 204 years old.
Anyways, guys, this is our first guest is Methuselah. Welcome.
It's funny.
Well, I don't know if I've ever asked you this.
Yeah.
How did you get started in comedy?
Well, I did a lot of stuff, not when I was young, but later in life, when I was like in my 30s and stuff, I started to do more theater for church. So I was involved with the church, but we started doing, the church I was involved with at the time decided they wanted to do some theater stuff. So I started to kind of help put that together, and I performed on stage theater-wise and enjoyed that. So that was the beginning of my performance life. Then my kids took an improv class. Then the class kind of fell apart, and so I took over the class for them, not knowing anything really about it. Just I wasn't teaching them improv. I was just facilitating these high school kids playing in the improv world. And then ultimately, I ended up getting really into improv. I met a buddy of mine, Brian Kohatsu, through that, and then I decided I wanted to try to do stand-up. I always wanted to try to do it, and my wife really pushed me toward it, and so I did. When Brian and I put together a little show and had great response, then started getting booked. And the funny thing is, I decided early on is that I'm putting too much time and effort into this. I had a family, I had a lot of stuff going on, and I couldn't afford to spend endless nights and hours writing and working and all of that unless I was making money or something. So I decided, well, how do I make money at this? And comedy is not really conducive to making a lot of money, especially if you're performing clubs and things. So I started to incorporate it into corporate speaking and that stuff. And that's kind of how I got started.
Um, yeah, isn't that right though? Like everyone talks about how they want to be like these big comedians, and they're like, I'm like, well, good luck, you know.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
how many times have you had like someone come up to you, maybe within the comedy scene or even Christian comedy scene or whatever, and they have this big idea? They're like, man, okay, listen, so I'm gonna start doing open mics, man, and I assume within 6 months or a year, I'll be doing arenas.
Yeah. Or not so much today, but back, in the day, a lot of comics, I remember starting out thinking, I don't know why I'm not on the Tonight Show. I'm funny. I do good. I'm better than the last guy I saw on that or whatever. But yeah, or the big arenas, or why are the big clubs not just booking me to headline? Never mind the fact I only have 15 minutes of material. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah, I always tell people about, well, it takes about 20 years if you
Yeah,
really, there's two people in the entertainment world, two kinds of people. They're the ones that really get lucky about 2 years in
yeah,
to doing something, whether it's acting or comedy or music or whatever like that. And then the other one is just being so good after 20 years of doing it over and over and over again that you start to get noticed.
yeah. I think you're right. You look at even the biggest stars. For the most part, there are exceptions, like you said, but for the most part, these guys have been working forever before they suddenly, became overnight successes. That overnight was 20 years long.
Yeah, yeah, that is, yeah. Like we can talk about the blue collar guys.
Yeah,
They were all starting the mid late
yeah,
seventies, and it wasn't until the mid late '90s that they really popped off.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. That's true. I think there was a sweet time around the 70s, early 80s, maybe, where comedy was held in such high esteem and it was in such big demand for a moment that there were a few guys that were lucky and got good breaks early on. And by early on, I mean 5, 6 years instead of 20 years. But you're right. It's funny how comics come on the scene and within 6 months, sometimes they're like, I don't understand, why I can't get booked in bigger venues. I can't understand this. It's just funny. Then on the other hand, I've seen guys come on the scene and, within the first 3 or 4 years, all of a sudden they're in Hollywood and writing for SNL or on SNL or doing some big, huge thing.
it's true though, because I think you're probably talking about like Michael Longfellow,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Uh, but like in all fairness, I mean he is very very talented and he worked
Oh,
very
yeah.
very hard. And I think one of the best things that someone told me is that they're in LA, they're a comedian, and they said that at the time him and Kevin Hart had the same manager or agent this is back in the early 2000s. And so he asked him if Kevin could stay on his couch for a while, and he said, "Yeah, of course." And so he said that everyone would go to the club, they all be working on their stuff, and then after the sets, everyone would go out drinking and partying, and they said that they'd right around the time that they'd get home about 5 a.m., Kevin Hart would be up writing, and they
Yeah.
said so.
Oh, yeah. It's absolutely. It's the hardest working guys that really get the breaks. It's the and by break I mean, yeah, they worked hard and got it. And Michael Longfellow is a good example of that. He one is talented, so which I think is cheating in comedy.
It's
If
so
if
stupid. I
you have
hate when
talent,
someone and when you're talented and you're funny, you're talented, and you're like, I'm not saying he's good looking, but he's not. But
yeah,
he's
he's
good
a
looking.
he's a comedy eight.
Yeah,
But again, hard worker and all that, and he has talent, and he's young, and that stuff goes a long ways. A lot of us started later in life. We had a kind of a real life ahead of time, and then we started this. But some of these guys that started 16, 17 years old or around there, and And if they're talented and they work hard, it's all those things, right? It's not just getting lucky. It's not even just putting in 20 years. You got to put in. You have to be talented and be good and put in a long time to be
Put it the work in.
Yeah.
Because I mean, how many times have you seen it? I've seen it so many times where someone comes in and boy, they're like a wrecking ball. They're like, oh man, this guy is so funny. And then 4 or 5 months later, you go, what happened to Marcus? And then everyone's like, well, he doesn't do it anymore because it's
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, of course. And I've seen also the guys who we know, and I know we both know some of the same guys, but I'm sure every comedian out there that's been doing this long enough has seen the guys been putting in 15, 20 years, and they're really just not very funny. So they're always going to be kind of the opening act if they're lucky, and
boy, is that oh man, that's something that it's I don't know, I think it might be starting to wane a little bit where it used to be that if you're just around long enough that you'll get the work just because you are here. You're like, well, I know you. Everyone knows Gary. Come on, Gary, let's go. And then, but now everyone's going, yeah, but Gary's not funny.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, it's true. I think there's also a thing. I think in the past, people tend to be a little bit more honest. Or today, the joke is in the green room or backstage or anywhere around a show where there's other comics. It's always great set. Liked your new stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
I've had comics tell me great set after shows that I didn't even perform in. I just happened to be there. So it's just this routine thing. People don't want to be critical, and so the guys that aren't really great probably don't realize it. Maybe that's my problem. Maybe I'm just not very good.
Well, and honestly, you really did have last night. You just crushed it. You were so good last night. Did you perform last night? I don't know.
But that's exactly what I hope to hear.
Yeah. Okay. So now, so let's talk about some of your accolades, because some people don't know these things. You not just in comedy. You're a legit smart person, and it makes me so mad.
If I could leverage it to comedy, if comedy took brains, then I'd have it all made. No, I was served in the Navy for 8 years, and after that became a software engineer and did that for many years, and still do that some of the time. And so that's kind of my world.
Yeah, if you ever get to go to Mike's house, because he wants everyone to come over. He says, come on over. He's got an extra bedroom. Everyone can stay there at the same time. Not a problem. If you ever go over there. Yeah, Mike's your computer setup reminds me of the Matrix. That's what it reminds me of. It's just so there's so much going on that I walk in there and I'm like, I'm wait, is Neo on the phone? It's crazy. This is crazy. But for what you do though, like it's necessary, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have more than is necessary, but I do. Yeah, it's not wasted at all. Because I do a lot of software design and stuff like that. Some of it's pretty in depth. So
yeah,
I do that.
Well, I know that you had a dry bar that came out. Unfortunately, it was kind of during the COVID. That's when it was all filmed, and it was
it was sold out show. Unfortunately, sold out was only 30 people at that point because they only let 30 people in, and they all had masks on and so forth.
It's tough because I was watching. I've worked with you many times, and you're hilarious. And I'm watching the show, and I'm like, well, if they're laughing, they're muffled.
Yeah,
and so it's and Dry Bar knows all these things, but someone like you, I feel like you deserve another shot. I feel like they should just let you come back in, re-record it, just do come on guys, let me do another one real quick here.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah,
obviously we all know that some of the Dry Bar comedians are in that category that we just talked about, or they're gonna, and that's okay. You know what? God has a purpose for everyone, and if that's being a middle act for the rest of your life, that's okay.
And having said that, I mean, we talked about guys that do this for 20 years and still aren't real good, but for the most part, most of those guys are happy with that. They're doing this as a hobby for fun. It wasn't ever intended to be their life or their career or anything. I'm sure all of them dream about getting discovered and becoming huge in it and doing the thing they love for their income. But I think most of them are happy putting in the time they're putting in and enjoy what they're doing. But yeah, for the rest of us, that it just takes a lot of hard work and stuff. And I would say for both you and I, Josh, I would say we're deemed successful as comedians. We can make a life out of that, and we do it and all that. We're not rich and famous,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe someday one of us or both of us will be, but right now we're not, super rich and famous.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I would say that, and I think it's a lot because I obviously you're the first guest on this new whatever this is, right? The new season or generation of this. Because one of the things I want to talk to people about is that like in comedy, like we're neither one of us are famous or whatever, but we both make a pretty good living. I make a pretty good living. Like I'm, if you look, I'm not going to share the numbers because no one,
it's in the hundreds though.
It's absolutely, yeah. I make at least 3 figures a year, at least. And no, but we talk about like, hey man, one of the things I think we talked about before was that, if Mike or Josh could see us now 5 years in the past or whatever, if Josh from 5 years ago could see where Josh is now, boy, would he be happy.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
And then, of course, Mike from the past, if he could see you now, he'd be really sad.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to continue to age then? Is that what, that's what I would be
thinking? No, I'm kidding. So I know you talked about you have the cross-eyed comedy. That's kind of your baby. Have you always felt like a push to go in, I don't want to say a church direction, but have you ever felt like the push to be sort of a light in the world?
I hear what you're saying. So when I first started comedy, it was such a bucket list kind of side thing. I never expected it to be anything more serious than, oh, this is a hobby I'm going to do for now, just for fun, see where it takes me. But as it became more and more a part of my life, I definitely started to feel the pull of using it in a positive way and using it. I feel like God gave me a gift, and as with all God's gifts, they're meant to be used for His glory and for Him. So that's kind of, I just felt that pull that way. Cross-eyed comedy came about pretty early on, and through all of that, and it was just purely so I could figure out here's the brand of comedy I want to do, to help the kingdom of God, and that's so yeah. To answer your question, early on I felt a pull to do that.
That's awesome. What were some of your the early experiences within the church of doing comedy or presenting?
I was lucky. I was able to do some small events and things like couples nights, some real small ones, and early on. And I didn't have a lot of material, but I would go up and share a little bit, do a little bit of testimony and that sort of thing, and then do the comedy, and it went really well. There have been several that did not go well, so I had to kind of retool and reevaluate and figure out why and how. And so yeah, I don't know. Some of the early experiences are, for one, it's been great because I've had people that I really like and that I trust and that are good, solid Christians doing it with me, and so that's been really great. Just that fellowship of it. But also just bringing, getting some of the testimony. I don't know how many, and you've probably had this experience too, but people come up after a show and say, or maybe even send in a message later on in the week or whatever that, my sister died, 3 weeks ago, and I haven't been able to laugh. This is the first laugh I've had in X number of months or years even. Or, I finally got my husband to come to church with me, and he had such a great time. He's going to come back. And, that's really kind of where you feel like, okay, that meant something.
Yeah. I had one not too long ago where this couple came to a show, and after the show, I'm meeting and talking with him, and he introduces his wife, and he tells me she said she has severe Alzheimer's disease, right? And he goes, for some reason, whatever you did made her laugh, and then I had her back for just a little bit.
Yeah.
And you go, oh well, that's
yeah, huge.
Yeah, that's huge. And I'm, but what if she was a terrible person? And then I'm sorry, I got I got that one back. Ooh,
I got her back for just a moment, you jerk.
But that's, man, I don't know. I just think it's so cool. So like one of the things I want to talk with a lot of people about is just like what do we do? Like how can we use this gift, and how can we enlighten the world with our gifts, and how to really I speak for a living, and sometimes the words stop coming.
Yeah. I know what you're saying though. I mean, how do you do that? A lot of the shows I do and you've done with me are community shows, 55 plus or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I've really gotten to enjoy those. My favorite thing after a show is when people come up to me and tell me that was so great. I really had fun. And you're one of the comedians that didn't swear, or, this show it wasn't dirty. It wasn't offensive. I always cringe. I always wait for the F-bomb to drop or whatever it is. And it didn't happen. So that was so much fun. And it's funny because I started out performing as a performer. I never intended to be clean per se, but I just was me. And so comics will sometimes say, why are you do clean? I think, why would I not? If I were to go up there and be dirty or cuss, then I'd have to play a character to do that, first of all, because it's not who I am.
And it's disingenuous. And people,
it is.
People know that when you're doing a character that's not really you, or they go, oh, I can see that he's just doing this to get that thing. Because how many times have you seen it? Like in comedy clubs, you meet these kids that are doing they do something, and they go up there and they're saying the filthiest things they could possibly say, and then you get off stage and they're like, yeah, man, that was like nice, and just like Jesus loved you. Like, what do you? Where's that guy at?
Yeah. I think most dirty comedy is an act. It's not. Yeah. That's not who you really are. Now, you may be the guy that talks dirty quite a bit, but when it amplifies up so much on stage, it's like, that's not real.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've had it. I'm sure you've had it as well. Like I've had it where I do a church, and there's in churches there's the ends of the spectrum of where they fall. One church, I mentioned hemorrhoids and they freaked out. Right? Just the idea that I would mention hemorrhoid, they flipped out on me. And another one, I do my normal set and I get off, and even the pastor and everyone's going like, man, you could have said the S word and the F word, and I was just like, we were waiting for you to go in there, and I was like, what? Why? What?
Yeah. You're right. It's a huge spectrum, and some people will be offended no matter what. You could be as clean as a whistle, but they're going to be offended because you made fun of people with dark hair, or you made fun of some situation in your life that they would take hard, or whatever. Mm-hmm. You can't appease everybody.
Or you just say a word. You say a word that triggers them. Yeah. I used to tell this joke. I don't tell anymore because it happened more than a couple of times, and I said, well, it's not worth it to tell the joke anymore. It's not that funny. The joke was essentially it was actually all this is true. A long time I went to my doctor a long time ago, and if anybody knows me, I have a bad back from the Army. I broke my back in the Army. So I go to the doctor, and he gave me these pills for my back, but it's like a really strong NSAID, Tylenol, but like a really strong one. Anyway, so he gives me these things, and I go online and I do the research to find out contraindications and the top 10 things that pop up are I take diclofenac, and it goes on all of them. We go, this is what cancer patients take during their chemo therapy thing. Right. So this is all true. The joke that I made was I tell her, well, he gives me these pills. And I found out that they're for cancer patients. And it turns out that my doctor doesn't like to give bad news.
Yeah.
And so I thought, and then, but I told her it was always funny, right? And then just a couple of times, someone hears the C word, and ruins their night.
I think people have been trained to be hypersensitive. I'm supposed to be offended by that word because of what I've gone through, so therefore I'm offended by it. Not
Mm-hmm.
look at it lightheartedly. And it's sad. I know people that are like that with certainly with politics or religion or anything else. You mentioned certain things, and it's like I've put myself in this position of being the guy that's offended by that. That's where
Mm-hmm.
that's where I plant my flag, and anything about that's going to offend me, I decided. And so
Yes.
anything does, and you never get to hear the humor. I've done jokes where it's actually not making fun of, like for marriage, for example. I'm not making fun of my wife. I'm making fun of the fact that I don't understand her, and yet some people, every once in a while, somebody will be offended on her behalf, and she doesn't care.
Mm.
But to be like, but you said your wife, talks too much or whatever. I go, no, I'm saying she talks more than I want. You talk too much so far too. I mean, for
Which,
me, it's my fault, not hers. But that's
yeah.
where we are anyway.
Which, by the way, and so the joke that you're referring to, and I'll is what it's a your wife took you to the doctor, and the doctor said you have hearing problems, and he said there's no way that's possible because there's no way my wife is talking more than I think she is, right? Is that
Yeah, yeah, that's
which
one
is
of them.
so funny to me because and I don't mean like that's literal, that's our life, is
Yeah,
that I have bad hearing.
uh,
My wife will be talking, and then like later on she'll ask me a question, and she'll be like, well, what did, but I told you. It's like, when?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Well, I've had to make a pact with my wife that neither of us ever say, "I already told you." We just answer the
Mm.
question. So I was like, "What time are we supposed to be at so and so tonight?" You can't. You're not allowed to say, "I already told you." You just say 7 o'clock.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Oh my gosh, that's what I need. Yeah, we're gonna do that.
Yeah, yeah. The
That's
I already told you has saved us many times because that always starts fights. I already told you, you idiot.
yeah.
That's what it feels like.
What do you know? Um, well, we're starting off. We're kind of trying to keep these a little bit brief. Trying to keep these around 30, 40 minutes or so. Um, uh, what? Well, I know. Okay, so here's some interesting facts about you. You go to a church where the pastor is also a mortician,
Yeah,
right?
and a aspiring comedian too.
An aspiring comedian. Does he ever let you see the dead body? Like, do you ever just get to go and you're like,
No,
"Hey,
I've
Mike,
never
you're
done
gonna
that.
want to see this one. This guy's."
No, he shared a lot of stuff with me, but no, I've never. My favorite joke he did, and I don't. Maybe it wasn't even his originally, but my favorite one was, as a mortician, people give you a whole bunch of weird stuff. You never know what you're going to get. Just the other day, somebody gave me a box of Cubans. That's hilarious.
Yeah,
That's mortician. I got a box of Cubans.
yeah,
So yeah, he's great. But yeah, that is true. I go to a church where the pastor's a mortician.
yeah. I love that, man. What's your I don't think we've let's dive. I'm going to dive real quick. We're going to dive a little bit deeper
Right,
into
right.
Mike. Who is Mike? What?
Ooh,
All
very
right.
good.
Well, everyone has their own favorite Bible verses, or whatever. What do you have a favorite a Bible verse that you try to live your life by?
The one I think that I always I'm drawn toward is as iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another in Proverbs. I think that's important to remember because for me, I've always, I was in the military like you were, and there was you know there's good camaraderie, very close camaraderie, but looking back, you realize I didn't have good Christian men around me for the most part, well, at all really, and and that makes such a difference being around those people. And I don't mean making sure you go to a Bible study. I mean your close inner circle of friends, the people that help shape who you are as a human being. For a man, you need other good, strong Christian men around you. And so I try to. I guess that would be the one that I kind of live closest to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like that one. That's what is that? Is that a Psalms? What is that? What is that? P
No, it's
Psalms?
Proverbs. I can't remember. It's Proverbs.
Proverbs.
I will
We
find
both
it
some
for you.
Proverbs.
As iron.
As iron sharpens iron. Yeah, that's pretty much every men's group motto, isn't it? Though.
Yeah, it's Proverbs 27:17. Yeah,
Okay.
it is. It is. But on just on a personal. That's what I mean, though. They say that, but then the men's group, and that's fine. The men's groups are good, but unless those are truly are, it's different if you're spending all your time and your good friends are not in that men's group. Who
Yeah.
are they? So it's really if you just take that as a person, your daily life kind of thing. I need to make sure. I'm not going to name names, but I have one friend that's a very good Christian. You know him, and he would hold me accountable to things that if I were to do things that were obviously displeasing to God, and that were separating me. I have another friend who is a very good friend of mine, also, who's not that at all. He's a good guy, but he's not that at all.
You're
And
talking
so,
about me on this one, though.
no, it's somebody we know, but I don't. But so to me, I feel like it's the other guy that I feel like I can turn to for important matters, and the one that I feel like and to be honest, even you as a friend, or Chris, or some of these other guys that I know through comedy that are Christians. As I do something, it does pass through my head. What would Josh think of this if I did this? Or what would, Brian or Chris or some of the other guys I know that are Christian performers, what would they think about that? Not that you're the end all, righteousness, but if I feel like I think I'm going to do this, and I think, well, these other guys that I hold highly as Christians would caution me against it, or they would counsel me against it, then maybe I shouldn't do it.
Hmm.
And it's only because I have you guys, those kinds of friends that would hold me accountable to that. If all my friends were the green room Christian or green room comedy buddies, I mean, I'm sure that I would have not held myself accountable high enough by now,
Yeah.
many times.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point because I mean, I'm not going to name names, but there was a very popular Christian comedian who had some issues, um, and he got called out for them, and he sort of had to step away for I don't know 6 months or a
Yeah,
year for right. Um, and when you look at the facts of what happened, uh, as a Christian, you're like, that's detestable. It's awful. But if you looked at it from a secular point of view, you go, well, that's not really
yeah. What's the
too
big deal?
bad. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. If you, so yeah, it's and I think that might be one of the things is that they were surrounded by secular
absolutely.
comics who were telling them, no, just dude, you're fine. Go do that. That's fine.
Yeah,
Nobody cares.
yeah. I absolutely. I mean, we're held to a different standard, and if we're not surrounding ourselves with people that are also held to that standard, then we will fall away from it for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who you listening to right now? Any uh, worship songs? What are you listening to?
I listen to such a variety. It's funny you say that because just today I wanted to listen to old country uh, gospel songs,
Ooh,
and
yeah,
then but tomorrow or whenever it'll be, let me listen to something real contemporary or new or whatever. But my when my kids were growing up, they listened to a lot of um, Christian Christian rock, I guess would be the genre, but there's Christian rappers, Christian, all these different
yeah,
influences, and so it's funny. There's a huge variety of it, but yeah, my favorite is old gospel music. I just love it. I love old
like
gospel.
the what was it? Is it the five blind Alabama boys or something?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know what the name is, but
Yeah,
yeah, there's that. But I just especially old Christian bluegrass, that kind of stuff. I just love it,
yeah,
or just old good hymns too. Um, how great thou art. All those songs are always really moving to me.
yeah.
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, honestly, very similar. I'm really into like recently I really got into like country worship
Yeah.
music,
Yeah.
but very specific. Not like the new I don't know new country. There's a couple guys. There's like Rhett Walker, um, who's like really good right now, and I have to look a couple other guys that are just crushing it. But yeah, there's what's that one song? It's called the cross in the middle. Let me see. I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna see who sings that real quick
That
here.
sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yeah. What? It's a little bit. It's not the. Yeah, it is Rhett Walker. Okay, so Rhett Rhett Walker. Man, I'm obsessed with that song right now. So I'll send you the link. I'll if anyone's listening to this, I'll link it to the show notes or whatever. So yeah, he's one of my favorites right now. He did a thing with Dolly Parton. He's just crushing it. So he might be one of my try to get people as we go along because I really want to open this up to not just Christian comedians because I'm or just not. I don't want to find people that are doing things in the world that are positive, like how we influence music, churches, artists, whatever we want to do. So,
Yeah.
Because the world, I just thought the world needs more comedians talking only with other comedians that they know.
They need more comedians with a podcast.
Yeah, more comedians need to be talking to only other open mic comedians on their podcast, and I thought that this would be a good start.
Start a whole new trend.
Yeah.
Are you gonna play the show out on the keyboard behind you? That's what I'm waiting for.
I should. The sad part is so during COVID, I learned how to play that thing. If you notice, all these little things are here. It's still I have all the stickers on there for the notes.
All the notes, yeah.
So I actually do pretty good with if the notes are on there. Most of the time I don't even need the music if I'm playing like. I can do like chords and stuff. I can't do all the little intricate stuff, but I can play a few songs if I have those on there. But if I'm on a piano that has no little stickies on there, not a clue. I have no idea what's going on.
I have a buddy who has a keyboard for his computer, just as typing keyboard, but none of the letters are on there.
Yeah,
and I've seen them in the store like that too. And I think I don't usually look at my keyboard when I'm typing, but I do often enough to make sure, like, oh, my fingers are in the wrong spot, or what? I don't know if that would drive me. Or if I can't find the open curly bracket sometimes.
Right? How does he know?
I don't know.
That's it. That's excessive.
It is.
That's unnecessary. That guy is the kind of person that he reminds me of, like a coffee shop where there's no Wi-Fi. That's what it is.
That's great.
When you go to a coffee shop, it happens all the time in LA. You go out there and then you go to a coffee shop and you go, "What's the Wi-Fi?" They go, "We don't have Wi-Fi. Talk to somebody." And you're like, "No."
That's hilarious.
Well, I'm gonna wrap this up. What do you have coming up, Mike? What do you have coming up?
I have a show tonight out in Mesa.
Oh, you do tonight?
Yeah. Actually, I have to leave here in just a few minutes. I have I don't know. I have several shows. Most of them are private, corporate things. I don't have. I have a wedding coming up in next week. I'll be at Discovery Community Church. They're doing a couples night. That's on the 15th next week.
Nice, love it.
Yeah. And,
how do you feel about doing weddings? I have a question. That's a question because I despise.
Yeah, I did one once, and I am ordained, so I can officiate the wedding. So, and I've done that for friends a lot, and that's fine. But when they want you to perform at a wedding, I always explain, I don't think this is what you really want.
Yeah.
And so this one I'm officiating, and then I am going to perform during the reception. And I explained all the ins and outs of it. I explained everything that would have to happen for it to go well, everything. And they were still all on board. They really wanted to do this. So I said, okay, we'll do it.
All right.
And that's been booked for like 6 months. Actually, she called me the other day and she said, so, yeah, we're not sure if we're going to get married now. And I said, oh, well, it's next week. And she said, yeah, we're still going to do this, but it might just be a party. I'm not sure yet. So I don't know if I'm doing a wedding or a party.
Yeah. Those are two very different things. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, because I think I've done 2 weddings, and both times they went fine, but I hated myself.
Yeah, yeah. I've done a few different kinds of things where, or the other classic one too is I did this once. I think a lot of us comics have done this one time where they bring you into some corporate event and they think it's going to be great. If they don't tell anybody it's a comedian, they introduce you as the new CEO or something,
Yeah,
and it'll be so funny because you'll be joking, they'll be like thinking, "What's going on?" Yeah,
yeah,
that doesn't work at all.
yeah,
They just look at you like, "What is he talking about? What is happening?"
yeah, yeah. And then you're like I do that because when I do corporates, a lot of times I'll start roasting people when I'm up there.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that's fun. It's fun to do, and then it
I
always gets a
always,
good
I always
reaction.
corporate's the best time to do it because you find out who the CEO is, what his hobbies are, all that
Mhm.
stuff, and he's fair game every time.
Yeah,
Although there's been 1 or 2 times where I said, "Okay, I'm going to do that." Oh, don't make he will not be happy. And I always think it doesn't matter if he's happy if everybody else is laughing. No, people won't laugh; they'll be scared. I'm like, okay,
wow.
that's somewhere I don't want to work.
Right? I know that's terrible. You're like, why would you want comedy in the first place?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, we're just gonna wrap it up there, Mike. Like for real. Thank you so much for being a friend,
Yeah.
and a compadre and an amigo. I'm just
And
kidding.
a fellow Anzio's fan.
And oh my gosh, yeah, we need to go get some Anzios
We
soon.
do, we do.
I'm
It's
I,
been too long.
I'm a hankering for some Anzios. I like Anzios because it's just far enough away from me that by the time I get back home, I'm really looking forward to the toilet. Just it's about a 35-40 minute drive for me. So we get done
It's
after
about
eating.
it's about halfway between you and I think it's
Yeah,
probably.
it's like it's a perfect spot. But by the time I get back to my house, it's like
Yeah.
we're prairie dogging.
You've had you've had your stomach giving your stomach 30 minutes to gurgle,
Yeah,
and now it's ready
it's
to
a
go.
gurgling. Anyways, that's probably not appropriate for this podcast. That's not appropriate. People are gonna write in for this one, sir. Man, no, but where can people catch you? MikeJamesComedy.com.
Yep. Or Facebook, Mike James Comedy, Twitter or X, Mike James Comedy, any of those things. Just look up Mike James Comedy. There's another Mike James does comedy,
Mhm.
and you'll probably run into his stuff too. But yeah, I'm the only
Yeah,
one
yeah.
that looks like this.
I was gonna say you'll see the difference. I've actually, believe it or not, I think I know 7 or 8 Mike James
Do you?
comedians. I do.
Yeah, I know there was. It's funny. I went up to Tacoma to do the Tacoma Comedy Club, and I was headlining up there. And when I got up there, they go, "Oh, it's you." There's a local open micer up here named Mike James. And I found out he was headlining here, and I thought, "What?" Yeah. Oh, okay.
Amazing.
Hopefully, I did a good enough job where they weren't too shocked.
You did great, man. You crushed it. Look at
Yeah.
the keep doing it. All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll be back next time. I don't have an
See
outro
ya.
for this yet. Thank you so much, Mike, for being the first guest of this edition of the Novey Showvey. As he said, you can catch Mike at MikeJamesComedy.com, on Facebook, Instagram, Mike James Comedy. There's a couple different ones, so be sure to look out. But I will tell you that the other Mike James, who lives in Nashville, I think he's super, super funny, amazing, so you can't go wrong. But yeah, so listen, if you want to tell me, write to me, ask me questions about how we're using humor to evangelize, how what we're doing in the church circuits, how we're using our gifts to the kingdom, all those, any questions you have, feel free, write them. Send a carrier pigeon. I don't care what you got to do. I'd love to hear from you. I'm really excited about this new project that we're working on. I have a lot of stuff coming up here soon. This month is I'm just kind of working on a book. and some other things with these movies projects that I'm working on. So very excited about those to come out. Next month I have a lot more comedy happening, and then the next month a lot more comedy happening. So, but this month I'm really just kind of focusing on getting all this stuff going, and that's what I'm really focused on, this podcast. Let's get this back up and running. I think that this can be a really fun thing for us to share and talk to people about evangelism and how they're using their gifts, whether it be music, comedy, acting. Are you a pastor? Are you a writer, an artist, a painter, a drawer, a candlestick maker? I don't care. I am so excited to hear about what you're doing and how you're doing it. So if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, reach out to me. We'd love to talk to you. I would be thrilled. Thank you so much for everyone for tuning in to the Novey Showvey, and you guys have a good day. Here we go!